We've got some breaking news for you. We are now getting word the lawyer for the president, Michael Cohen, has just disclosed in court that the client who had requested to remain unnamed was Sean Hannity of Fox News. This explosive information, as we now know, porn star Stormy Daniels, she is sitting in that very same courtroom, as is Michael Cohen, the man who paid her $130,000 to keep her mouth shut about that alleged affair with the president. Cohen asking on behalf of the president to get the first look at what the FBI swept up in that massive raid last week. So Shimon Prokopez is the man who has been covering this hearing, who just dropped the bomb. So for people who are just tuning in, I know, I'm looking at your face, mine's the same. People who are just tuning in, what the heck happened?
So these were arguments that were ongoing all morning, and Michael Cohen's attorneys tried every which way not to release this name. They one point claiming it was embarrassing, another point saying that it was privileged information, and the judge each time basically shot them down. We even the media here, the New York Times, us, CNN, other folks, we had our lawyer get up and argue, and the judge agreed that this name should not remain sealed, that it was a name that needed to get out, that just the mere fact that you represent someone, a client, does not make it privileged information. And in stunning fashion, she ordered Michael Cohen's attorney to say the name in court. He at one point offered to put it in an envelope and give it to her. He wanted it to remain sealed. She said, "No, I'm ordering you to release the name." And he stood up and he said the name, Sean Hannity. And there was obviously a lot of reaction from people in the courtroom. I mean, really, most of the people in the courtroom is press. There are some spectators, obviously Stormy Daniels sitting in the back of the courtroom next to her attorney, Michael Avenatti. But I could tell you, certainly that name shocked everyone. Several of us from the media got up, walked out to just get out here and try and report this information. Now, to be clear, we don't know what connection, in what way Michael Cohen was representing him, but it was a recent representation because it relates to some of the material. Perhaps they were arguing that maybe privilege, and that's why his name shouldn't be out there, and they wanted to review these records before the FBI and prosecutors here started reviewing them. Okay. And then I have some other information just about the case, Brooke, but we can get into that.
Okay, let's get into that in a second because I have questions for you. Okay, so let's back up. So you said that this judge says to the lawyer that this client who was unnamed needs to be named out loud. The envelope isn't good enough. When this Cohen attorney is standing there, how did he say it? Was it like, Sean Hannity? Or, I mean, was it like loud in court for people to hear? And how did you say a lot of press is in court? How did Stormy Daniels respond?
So I didn't see her response. She was sitting in the back kind of to the right. I think for most of us, I mean, he said it clearly. He just came out. There were two attorneys there arguing on behalf of Cohen's. One is Mr. Ryan, who is here from Washington, D.C., and there's a Mr. Harrison, who's a New York attorney. Both of the attorneys for Cohen made every attempt to argue with the judge, make their arguments that this name should not be released. And then the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney in this case, Mr. McKay, got up and basically said that they were not taking a position on this, and they wanted to make it clear. And then moments later, there were some other arguments. And then basically Mr. Ryan, who's representing Mr. Cohen, just said the name. And that is when there was reaction, visible reaction from people in the courtroom. And then that's when several of us got up and left, and that's when I came down here, Brooks.
Do you have any idea, outside of the name Sean Hannity, what matter it was involving between Michael Cohen and Sean Hannity?
No, the only thing that we know is during the arguments, Mr. Ryan, Cohen's attorney, argued that this was a person who had some notoriety, obviously, and that's why they didn't want the name getting out there. There was always concern of embarrassment. They had said that several times. But as to what their dealings were, in what way, or what he may have been doing for Sean Hannity, that was not made public. Okay. And I don't expect that to be made public, but certainly there's going to be a lot of questions. I mean, arguments are still ongoing. Mr. Trump's attorneys, the president's attorneys, have yet to argue their case. You know, they filed a motion this morning trying to prevent the FBI, asking, in fact, that the president himself and his attorneys review these documents that the FBI seized. The judge, as of right now, has not ruled on that. It seems the prosecutors feel that Michael Cohen and the president want unfair treatment. There's every indication, at least from the judge even, that the case law is just not on their side, and that really the parties here, Mr. Cohen and the president, are asking for special treatment. The prosecutors at one point talking about that, saying how what the president is asking for here is special treatment, and that should not happen, that we need to keep this fair and treat this like any other case.
Okay. What was the other bit? Did you have another nugget from the hearing that you wanted to pass along before I bring in my lawyers?
So, yeah, Brooke, they talked, the prosecutors, so there's this whole issue about how much of this material is privileged. Again, the prosecutors, the judge, seemingly frustrated that Michael Cohen can't give them any number, the number of documents perhaps that are, may contain privileged information that could be affected by privilege. At one point, the judge asked the prosecutors, okay, so how much material do you have here? And he gave us a window into it. He said he couldn't be very specific because some of it they have not been able to go through. But what we've learned is that the FBI recovered 10 boxes that they removed in total from the 3 locations that they searched. We also learned that there are hard drive devices that they imaged from some of the locations. So essentially they didn't even take those hard drives. They just basically copied them. Whatever was on there, they then put it on their hard drives, and also other electronic devices that they have. And then, a couple of more details about the case, Brooke, in that this really, they're saying, the prosecutors, is that this does not center around Michael Cohen's legal work, that the investigation here centers around his personal dealings, his business dealings, and his financial dealings, as an argument as to why this whole notion of privilege should not apply. Really, in the end, Brooke, what's happening here is this emergency relief that Michael Cohen has filed is slowly backfiring on him, because now everything that they did not want to do, certainly releasing Sean Hannity's name, has happened.
Yep. Shimon, let's get you back in that courtroom. Thank you so very much. Shimon Prokopez in Manhattan.